says 86% of the rank and file voted in favor of the contract. That's said to be the highest vote for approval of a deal by Teamsters at United Parcel Service ever. A difficult negotiation put UPS workers on the brink of walking picket lines, but shortly before the end of July, the sides announced the deal that had to get workers' support. Members have been voting since August 3rd. Union President Sean O'Brien said the agreement means better pay, benefits, and working conditions for the people who deliver packages coast to coast. Gernal Scott, Fox News.
The somber search for wildfire victims continues on the Hawaiian island of Maui.
Every single structure or area that's been damaged by the fire is being and will be searched for human remains so that we can recover our loved ones.
Maui's Police Chief John Pelletier, 115 victims have been found so far. Pathologists trying to identify them with DNA samples from relatives of people still missing. Hundreds of people are on the unaccounted for list. There are new calls for mandatory seatbelts in school buses after a deadly school bus crash in Ohio on the first day of school.
The Ohio State Patrol says a school bus with 52 children aboard had tried to avoid an oncoming SUV that crossed the center line on State Route 41 in Lawrenceville.
After contact, the school bus traveled off the right side of the roadway and overturned.
Trooper Tyler Ross says 23 students were injured, one seriously.
There was one student that succumbed to fatal injuries at the scene of the crash. They were ejected from the school bus.
The cause of the crash is under investigation. Jeff Manasso, Fox News.
And I'm Jack Callahan. This is Fox News.
Half a day. This is Claire Manglona from Security Title with an important warning. Wire fraud is real, and home buyers and sellers are one of the biggest targets, even on Guam. When sending money by wire transfer, be sure to confirm the wire instructions by phone, not email. In this case, it's good to be suspicious and know who you're dealing with. Let the professionals at Security Title work with you to minimize loss due to wire fraud. We are here to help.
Join us at Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro and see why they've been crowned Guam's best Chamorro food restaurant for 9 consecutive years. Experience Chef Peter's candied salmon over scallion coconut rice, octopus tenactac, Chamorro platter, and their award-winning gourmet burgers. Or if you're looking for something healthy, try their keto-friendly menu. Come and enjoy Mezcla's half-a-day service at their Hagåtña location from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. for lunch, 5:30 p.m. to 9 p.m. for dinner, or 10 a.m. to 2:30 p.m. for their famous Sunday brunch.
Always here to help you. This island is our home. Through the years, we've been a friend to the neighbors we have known. Now we're banking on the future. Services to choose. Bank Pacific, where others put branches, we place roots.
Welcome to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie, the only show on talk radio where common sense is a lot more common. Phone lines are now open at 888-TALK. That's 888-8255. And now, The Point proudly brings you Tall Tales with Senator Bob Klitzkie.
A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Certainly not on this Wednesday afternoon, Jose.
Absolutely, certainly, most importantly, not today.
It's a gray old day today.
Yeah, I think the sun is doing some load shedding. It got dark out there.
Okay, so I'm going to pick up on what I've been using here for Zemi Kotny. This is a piece by Victor Davis Hanson called The Remaking of America. And let's see, I'm down to universities. This is the last item on the card here. I've gone through the other 9 items that he's ticked off. Universities, it's now heresy that universities should be places of disinterested inquiry and inductive investigation. That's the last thing we want at our universities. They can properly instead become a valuable tool in ridding society of racist and sexist forces, platitudes about free speech and equality under the law, and the tyranny of private property, capitalist profiteering, and white male heterosexual Christian oppression. Thank goodness that the universities are finally getting their heads on straight, Jose.
Yeah, but they still got them way up there.
So the role of a university is to create a brief space in which graduates can leave with proper training about the terrible history of the United States and the ways in which it must be dismantled and then can be rebuilt by the properly trained experts from the ground up. Counter-revolutionaries or deluded liberals and their quaint adherence to racist and archaic Bill of Rights have no place on these islands of progressive resistance. None of the above was true at the millennium. All are now, with more to come. So he went through the 10 most easily seen methods of remaking America. He doesn't go into the cause, but of course tailgaters know exactly how long ago this started. It started 100 years ago, 101 years ago, 1922, with the Frankfurt School, where Herbert Marcuse and a few other German philosophers met and decided that Marx got it wrong. That Marx said that the revolution of the workers of the world was inevitable. It was a natural maturation of capitalism. Well, we found out in World War I, when French and German workers could slay one another with carefree abandon, that wasn't true. So the neo-Marxists had to come up with a new method of destroying capitalist society to clear the way for Marxism, for communism. And they decided that the way to do that was to go up through the administrations. Theodore Adorno said, we're going to make capitalism stink. And they would do that by trumpeting all of the so-called inequities based on race, not class anymore, but race, sex, lack thereof, whatever. And this way they could cause that internal conflict that would cause people to doubt the things that they'd taken for truths all of their lives. There is a God, as an example. Jesus Christ was crucified on all of these things that we've known for a long time. And the more they were at it, the more wild they become. So now we've got maybe 40% of the population that think that a man can have a baby and that a woman could become a man, and all of this other ridiculous sexual anarchy that if you don't buy into it, if you don't pretend right along with the lunatics, you could find yourself canceled, fired, ostracized, whatever.
Relativism doesn't require a strong, firm foundation. You can think anything you want.
Exactly.
As long as it fits what you want it to be.
Exactly. So that was the Frankfurt School, aided and abetted by what our friend, the most dangerous man in the room, R. Carl, has labeled the most dangerous man in the 20th century, whose name was, what was his name? The Italian guy. Oh, shucks, it's right on the tip of my tongue. Gramsci, Antonio Gramsci, yeah, who pioneered communism in Italy. Mussolini locked him up because Mussolini abandoned his Marxism for fascism, there being very little difference between the two. And Gramsci wrote his prison diaries there that have become the text for what Gramsci labeled the long march through the installations. So rather than wait for this inevitable workers of the world to unite revolution, which it never happened. Gramsci said, we corrupt the institutions, the schools, the colleges, the political bodies, etc. And that way we make people so dissatisfied with what they've got that they'll embrace Marxism as a solution. Has it worked? It has worked beyond their wildest imagination. So that now I see surveys every day that, something like 40% of young college students thinks, yeah, Marxism's pretty good stuff. There's nothing wrong with communism is so much more humanitarian than capitalism. So that's where we are. And that you've seen the examples of where we are right now, where, as Victor David Hanson says, the country that we lived in 10 years ago is now barely recognizable, and it's getting worse, not better. And there's no easy fix to this. The fix is this, that every single one of us has to be a soldier, and we have to abandon this doctrine of nice. Well, I know you're woke, and I know you think that we've got to make all restrooms safe for transgenders. And they're wrong as hell, but you don't want to be anything but nice. So you say, yeah, I know what you mean. Go along with it instead of saying, hey, no, that's wrong. I'm going to set you straight on this. You may think I'm a bad person, but I'm fighting the good fight, and I'm not going to put down my sword because you've got tender feelings and you're easily triggered. That's where we are. And that's what Tall Tales is all about. It's always been about. And as far as I'm concerned, it's always going to be about. We don't tolerate this nonsense here on Tall Tales. We call it out for what it is, and we do our best to get people thinking along the right track. And that's exactly what I'm going to do today. I've got a card here, and it starts out like this: Docomo versus customers. And then we've got more self-insured versus retirees, employees, and doctors. Then we've got porta potties versus students. Yeah, just when and this is an offshoot on DOE versus students, where I went through the checklist at Wettengale Elementary yesterday, and they finally discovered that the restrooms are improperly constructed and that the rooms aren't air-conditioned. All of these other things that have been obviously going on for years and years. But this latest one now, putting porta potties at the schools, I got to say it, Jose, I can't resist. It's a really crappy solution to a problem that's been going on for a long time. Then we get into Doug versus the CCU and Doug versus aliens. Back to crappy solutions again. We've got EPA versus Taki. Georgia versus Trump, which is I started on yesterday. Okay, so of course we start out with, the greatest restaurant on the island, Jeff's Pirates Cove, that very, very handily sponsors systemic racism for us. And you know the analogy. The rice is orange, the narrative says it's red. If you say it's red and not orange, the facts are it's red, the narrative says it's orange. The facts are that it's red, that it's orange. If you say that it's not red but orange, you're bucking the narrative. You're going to get canceled, just like Paul Zerzan did at the Daily News. And I use that analogy throughout the show because it keeps coming up all the time. And this thing about, the facts are that if you're born with male plumbing and one Y chromosome, you're going to be a male for the rest of your life. In fact, you're still going to be a male after you die. But that's not the narrative. The narrative, oh no, the gender is a sociological conditioning. So you could be born a man, but if you really want to be a woman, you can be a woman. And if you stand up and say, hey, that's BS, you're bucking the narrative and you're going to catch some flack from somewhere. And I'm very thankful for Jeff. I'm very thankful for Jeff for sponsoring this really important part of the program. I've told you about Jeff's before, and I've told you, if you've never been there before or it's been a while, give yourself a treat. Get out to Jeff's. It's out there in Route 4. It's on the beach volleyball, good bar, great restaurant, museum, a little amphitheater where you can hold larger events, a gift shop, the pirate himself. And Jeff's is the only place on the island that has a special license to serve red rice. And here's what it looks like on Jeff's menu. Yeah, there you see it, right on Jeff's menu. Jeff has my special dispensation to serve red rice. Now you can see that it's orange. But, Jeff makes such a valuable contribution to this show that Jeff can call it red rice with impunity. Jeff has another special privilege, and that is when we get to the rogues gallery of the show, which I know everybody really likes, and I know people are tripping over one another to get on it. You could get on the rogues gallery with any one of the T-shirts that you buy at Jeff's that says Jeff's Pirates Cove on it. You'll notice I'm wearing a Jeff's Pirates Cove shirt myself. It's my second most favorite T-shirt, right after my Tailgater T-shirt. So go out to Jeff's, enjoy yourself, buy a Jeff's Pirates Cove shirt, take a selfie, send it to
the Points WhatsApp, just like the way you sent this picture, Bob. And that's 671-797-8255.
Say it again, Jose.
That number again is area code 671-797-8255.
And you'll find yourself on the Tailgaters Rogues Gallery. Now, if you really want to make it nice, have your picture taken with Jeff in your Jeff's Pirates Cove shirts. It doesn't get any better than that, folks. Okay. Next, I'm going to go to, wait a minute. First item on the card here. First item on the card is Docomo versus customers. How long ago was the typhoon?
Was that May 24th? Something like about
Was it that long
2
ago?
months?
So we can't use that excuse anymore.
Nope.
And Docomo has been a disaster since then. It took them a long time to get up and online, and it took them longer than GPA to get up and online like they should have been for a long time ago. And it took them, and then once they got there, they couldn't maintain it because they were constantly going offline. And I got to see if I can get Facebook here. And they keep losing it. Now, yesterday about 4:30, they lost it. So I lost internet. I can't stream. And because I don't have internet, I can't print from my iPad. And because I can't print from my iPad, I can't do the show prep the way I really like to do it. So, Docomo, you hold yourself out as an internationally sophisticated company, and you're just falling flat on your butt. There's just no getting around that. And it's really pretty disappointing for your customers. That is, the few that you've been able to hang on to, this has been a real boon for GTA, because I know an awful lot of people who say, I've had it with Docomo, especially the ones that signed up telephone, internet, and telephone and internet. They're just out of luck. SOL, as the saying goes. But Docomo, as being a communications company, has done a great job of communicating, right? Nothing. Docomo, you owe it to your customers. If you can't do it with your own stuff, come on, buy an ad on Tall Tales and tell your subscribers what in the hell is going on with your stuff. You know, I can understand the mail being a day or two late, but with you guys, it doesn't work that way. So I'm going to be unmerciful of you and my criticism until you finally start acting like a communications company, Docomo.
I hope they're not sending out emails.
Next item on the card is more self-insured versus retirees, employees, and docs. And I got to take this one off my email because I was finally able to get email here. Or, excuse me, my Wi-Fi hotspot at home.
This is the part where we hear the shuffling of papers.
Yeah.
Now I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, just keep talking, Jose. Don't play that music. It just makes it all the more apparent that I can't find what I'm looking for. Keep talking,
We're going
Jose.
up already. Just to remind people that what's next on the list is the porta potties or DOE versus students. And if anybody has been in a porta potty, well, we didn't have any porta potties this summer because we didn't have any parades. I think there wasn't even a carnival this year, was there? Oh, a couple days of a carnival. But we know how great those are, and those are only there for a couple of days for these special events. How long are these porta potties going to stay up at these schools? It's going to last as long as it takes to fix the bathrooms. Do we have enough for every school on the island? It's something that I don't think there's been a lot of foresight on.
Absolutely. So I found the article that I'm going to do first, and then I'll go to porta potties after that. Or maybe I'll just go straight to porta potties since you've laid such a nice foundation for it, Jose.
It's okay. We can do number 2 later.
Okay. Yeah. 4 DOA schools to use portable toilets to meet restroom quotas. Now, I'm going to stop here for a second and give a short history lesson. I'm going to talk about third world countries, a phrase that has been greatly misunderstood this century. But back during the last century, we had the United States and the Western Alliance. This was the first world. We had the communist part of the world, the Soviet Union, Red China, their satellites, fellow travelers, etc. This was the second world. And then we had non-aligned nations that said, we're not going to sign up with either one of these guys. We're going to hoe our own row. And this would have been countries like India, Cambodia once upon a time, etc. And most of these countries were what we used to call developing countries. In other words, they didn't have the modern conveniences of even the second world, even the communist bloc. And that's what we used to call third world countries. In fact, I still use that phrase as third world countries. You know how I am about giving words new meanings. That's how we get in these woke types of situations, because we take a word, the meaning of which we know, and change the meaning, thereby changing the thought process, and thereby thinking about the way people think. So people use third world now to mean what Donald Trump referred to rather directly as, and I'm going to paraphrase myself, as shucks hole countries. Right?
You're canceled.
Yeah. Countries that are undeveloped, or maybe not even developed, backward countries that don't have any of the modern conveniences. That's what people mean nowadays when they say, well, it's a third world country. Not that it really, that it's a non-aligned country, because after the Soviet Union fell apart, there was hardly any point in being a third world country. As a matter of fact, even the People's Republic of China at that time didn't look a whole lot different from third world countries. I went to Canton, also known as Guangzhou, in the mid-'80s. People were still wearing those blue Mao jumpers, and you'd see people riding around on bicycles with a dog carcass over their shoulder. I mean, it was really primitive.
Dinner?
Yeah. And we made a mistake. You know, we tried to talk the communists, come on, you guys, become capitalists. We'll trade with one another. We can become good friends. How wrong we could have been. What we should have done with Red China, we should have said, you guys got something really good going there. Stick with that Marxist communism. You'll be fine. Because they never would have crawled out of the hole that they were in, any more than the Soviet Union could crawl out of the hole that it was in. And the story on the Soviet Union back in those days was it was a totalitarian state where you can gain real short-term advantages if you don't spread yourself too thin. So the story on the Soviet Union was this. They could make a retractable ballpoint pen, or they could make a rocket that would go into outer space, but they couldn't do both at the same time because they just didn't have the industrial capability to do it. So now we've reprogrammed the word third world country to mean some backward place like Bangladesh or something like that. And we're trying really hard to be the current example of a third world country. Can you imagine bringing portable toilets to a public? I couldn't have even imagined that back in the day. And I got a long text from, a long WhatsApp from Vince today saying this is the worst school opening in the history of the schools. Now, I'm going to take a few minutes here to talk about the opening of the schools in 1994, right after we take a short break.
Always here to help you. This island is our home. Through the years, we've been a friend to the neighbors we have known. Now we're banking on the future. More services to choose. Bank Pacific, where others put branches, we place roots.
Are you tired of boring jobs that leave you feeling like a broken record? Well, get ready to tune into the most exciting opportunity of a lifetime. Choice Broadcasting. That Star 101, The Boss and The Point, is searching for enthusiastic salespeople and radio DJs to join our incredible team.
Salespeople, listen up. Are you tired of selling random gadgets or dull office supplies?
At Choice Broadcasting, you'll be selling airwaves. That's right, folks. We're talking about selling the magic of music.
And for you music lovers and microphone masters out there, we need DJs who can set the airwaves on fire. Have you always dreamt of being the voice that electrifies the masses? Look no further. We've got the stage where your talent can shine brighter than the sun.
So if you've got the charm, the wit, and the desire to be a part of an extraordinary team, grab your headphones and join us today. Call 888-RDIO or 888-7346 for your application.
Choice Broadcasting, where sales and radio collide and extraordinary careers are born.
Welcome back to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie, Guam's single voice of reason. Call now, 888-TALK. That's 888-8255.
So, the opening of schools in August of 1994. I took over as Director of Education in February of 1994. And we started a countdown, as far as I can remember, somewhere in July, a countdown till the first day of school. And, you know, we had benchmarks and things we had to accomplish. In those days, space was the biggest problem. Now, if you drive around, you'll find some school campuses. A good example is Brody Elementary. You'll find those concrete buildings, standalone classrooms. We built a lot of those during that time. Thanks to Governor Joe Atta, who really got behind us and helped us do that, building those classrooms. Brody School had been offices. We moved the offices out of Brody and moved them up to Mighty into an office building where they belonged, turned Brody back into a school. So we had enough space for all of the kids. In order to make things work the way they should, I bought a cell phone, Jose, 1994.
Was the size of a Volkswagen Beetle?
It looked like a brick, about the same size as a brick. It was a nicely put together piece of gear. It had a leather cover on it, and it opened up, and it was this big. You know, it was actually as bigger than this handset on this phone here. But I had to have instant communication throughout the network so I could keep track of what was going on. I was all over the place. I was like Takin Gutlagu. I was everywhere. And the only problem that we had that day, we had some parents that came down to Price Elementary in Manila who were disappointed because of redistricting. Their kids were not going to go to Price Elementary. I think they were going to go to Chalampago. We had to level out class sizes or something like that. And they were very disappointed. But I met them on campus, and I let them throw some verbal darts at me. I used the magic trick that leaders must master if they're really going to be leaders, and that is I stood my ground and gave them a darn good listening to.
Good for you.
And you'd be amazed sometimes how well that works. So we were able to put out that fire, and everything, as far as I know, went very, very smoothly. I'd like to take all the credit for myself. We had good people in the department back in those days, good principals, a lot of good folks. And I don't know what's happened. I just see, and I'm going to blame it on the last director. The St. John Fernandez spent a year on leave without leave with pay because of an alleged scandal. And when he left, they couldn't have enough going away parties for him. He's hardly out the door, and we find that the schools are going to hell in a handbasket, that his guy in charge of federal programs gave himself $80,000 worth of overtime with his permission. And now it's kind of like walking through a minefield. You can't see anything out of there, but boom! What's the next John Fernandez mine that's going to blow up for us? And this opening a school where we got to bring porta potties to the schools. It almost leaves me speechless, Jose. It's almost too rough to even talk about. But here's the story that I have to read off my internet. 4 public schools will be using portable toilet facilities to serve teachers, students, and staff as students this week make their return to campuses damaged by Typhoon Mawar. Price Elementary, Agata, Inalahan, and Jose Rios will be temporarily using portable toilets or porta potties as the Department of Ed works to address plumbing and sewage challenges. Currently, we're in the process of purchasing container restrooms. Boy, I can only imagine what that's going to look like, which come fully equipped with water, power, and other amenities. The container restrooms are to ensure there are sufficient toilets and sinks to meet the restroom to student population ratio. Now, when the Every Child Act was inadequate, was enacted. For several budgets after that, and I used to go to the budget hearings after I was out of the legislature, they would have a spreadsheet for every school, and there'd be 14 lines on that spreadsheet, and it would indicate what was needed, what was required, what was needed, how many they needed, and how much it cost, and that was the basis for their budget document.
You know what that's called? A PAR system.
A what?
A PAR system.
PAR.
Like golf par, not like related.
Yeah.
Yeah. Restaurants use that too. Almost anybody has an inventory for a week has that.
Yeah.
And it's a good system.
It's a very good system. And it worked because it would bring things up. And it's very difficult for a senator to say, I noticed you've asked for $100,000 worth of toilets. Why do you need the... Well, there it is right there. But later on, I think that got to be too hard. And, everybody knows where the toilets are. And as I mentioned, there are fewer kids in school now than there were then.
So what's the problem?
Exactly. What's the problem? Now we can't use the toilets that are built into the schools. We've got to bring in trailers with toilets on them. I don't know. It's time for really, really radical change.
The PAR system fails when you stop doing it, and it has to be done every week.
It does, yeah. We need some radical solutions here, and I was hoping that's what Swanee would be. And if you ask some of the folks who were in the department back in '94, they thought that's what they were getting, and they were. Because the schools needed some help at that time. But, I'm going to give Malfunction a pat on the back. Some of the stuff he does seems pretty impulsive, poorly planned, bordering on demagoguing, but he really called it right on the schools. Had he not come out with his 37-4 public law, we would not be getting the porta potties. We'd probably be clearing a path out in the boonies. And of course, we'd only need one path. You wouldn't need a separate one for girls and boys because we can't even tell the difference anymore, right? Sanitary rules and regulations for schools mandate that elementary schools have one female toilet for every 35 females and one male toilet for every 50 males. I got a feeling that's going to end too, Jose, because in the woke 21st century, I've read that Navy ships no longer come equipped with urinals. So every toilet has to be a sit-down toilet. All in the name of inclusion. Well, lawmakers recently passed and the governor signed legislation to let DOE facilities slide on their sanitary regulations until the start of the next year. Schools are working to come into compliance in the meantime. The toilet situation isn't completely dire at Price, according to Tim Fedenko, president of the Guam Federation of Teachers. This is the first time I've seen those words in print since this all started. The Guam Federation of Teachers has been suffering through a self-imposed gag rule. They haven't said boo about any of these things. Now, here's what Fedenko said, and he'd be better off keeping his mouth shut. Fedenko, who teaches at Price, said there was no word about any major issues with the sewage from the school leadership, and there did not appear to be a serious problem to him. I mean, are all the toilets working? No. But are there enough toilets to use? Are they working? I just used the bathroom a few seconds ago.
Oh, God. What? That's really a quote.
Yeah. I'm going to put that. I'm going to put that in the notable sayings. Let me try it again. It doesn't seem to be a serious problem to Tim Fedenko, president of the Guam Federation of Teachers. Quote, I mean, are all the toilets working? No. But are there enough toilets to use? Are they working? I just used the bathroom a few seconds ago. Therefore,
there has to be. I hope he had been interviewing him for a couple of minutes.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah,
that so now we're left to anecdotal evidence.
Exactly. The magic sample of one.
Right.
Well, there's no problem on at price because I just talked to Tim Fedenko and he couldn't come straight to the phone because he had to take a piss. So I guess everything's okay out there at price.
Everything's fine.
President of the GFT.
Everything's number one here. Everyone's a go.
Yeah. Wow. Fedenko added he had not heard complaints about restroom facilities from teachers at any other schools. Yeah, that's exactly what we need. Malfunction told the Post he understands other schools may be facing more serious toilet issues than Price. Malfunction didn't mention anything about his own elimination challenges or lack thereof. But the Price did not receive confirmation from DOE as press time Tuesday. Not every teacher has the same opinion about letting schools that are typhoon damaged and falling short of sanitary regs open up to students, Fedenko told the Post. Lawmakers in a split decision opted this month to walk back an accelerated timeline for schools to get into compliance with the sanitary regs or shut down. Damage caused by malware and a desire to keep kids in the classroom drove the decision. Quote, teachers are mixed. I'm sure you'll find someone who hates it, some who are all ready to go on strike. Some were fuming. But to me, I think it's better we go back to work. Unlike during COVID-19 pandemic, parents now have to go back to work to support their kids and can't stay at home watching them, he told the Post. Babysitters. At Price, a Phase 3 school that would not have opened up on time for school had sanitary regs not being walked back. Unsafe areas had been cordoned off, Fedenko said. While sticking kids into double sessions at schools that aren't in perfect shape is not ideal, I think the best thing is to be open and fix the schools while they're open. Yeah.
This is the president of the Guam Federation of Teachers.
Exactly.
Pitching for DOE.
Yeah. However, Fedenko was happy the push by Barnett got schools into compliance and they had renewed conversation about the poor states of schools. Far be it for him to do it. After all, he's only president of the teachers union. Teachers don't care about students, right? That's the impression that you walk away with here.
Not according to their representative.
Yeah. Fedenko said he woke up a sleeping giant. I wonder if he's talking about me. I've never fallen. I can fall asleep damn near anywhere, Jose.
Well, you know the first thing we do when we wake up from sleeping. What Fedenko did.
Yeah. Exactly. In fact, that's the reason we wake up from sleeping. But I've never fallen asleep on this show.
Never.
So when he's talking about waking up the sleeping giant, maybe he's not talking about me.
But you're not woke.
No, I'm not even close to being woke. When asked about the main challenge for teachers in the upcoming school year, he said he expected heat to be one of the biggest problems brought up. I think a lot of union members are going to be yelling at me about air conditioning. In other words, if it makes them uncomfortable then it becomes an issue. And sometime when I got a chance, I'll tell you about the old days before any of the schools were air conditioned and how hot it could be, especially at the beginning of the school year in hot August and September. Fedenko said adding the typhoon damage and rotating outages were taking air conditioning units offline. He estimated that between 70 and 80% of Price Elementary did not have air conditioning. Wow. But let's open the schools anyhow.
What a missed opportunity.
Exactly. Okay, let's see what we got in the green room here. Open sesame. I wonder if Dokam it's Flora. Having a little difficulty getting my, there it is. Flora wants to talk about the schools. Go ahead, Flora. Tell me about the schools.
Hey, happy day, Bob. I hope we don't get disconnected. You know, Gandhi Heights, of course, where there was this 1 second power surge or power glitch. So I hope we don't get disconnected. How are you doing this? I know last week and the week prior to that you were coughing. So
well,
I was sort of like worried for you.
I'm happy to say I kissed my cough goodbye. It's gone.
Amen.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm just cracking up again about, you know, the situation in Guam with the third world, I guess, what they call it, and what do you call that? The whipped cream and hiding on top of the talkie.
Yeah.
I have to laugh again. I mean, I have no other recourse but to laugh because I don't see anything getting better with this island. It's not getting better. And you know what, Bob? I'm so glad. My grandchildren, they're attending what do you call that? A private school, and one of my grandchildren just relocated to the United States 2 weeks ago. So you know, I feel so confident that they're going to be okay with the schools. But the situation in Guam, it's crazy. I can't understand why we are in this predicament. You know what, Bob? Today we drove by going home. We did some medical stuff, and we drove by the Agana swimming pool, and I said, "Wow, it still looks like that." I mean, already almost 8 years is going to pass to, you know, with this administration, and nothing has been done. Even with that alone, you know, what more with the situation with the toilet in the school. So it's like, what's going on? I'm not happy. I mean, who's going to be happy with how we're living in a situation like this? It's insane.
You're absolutely right, Flora, and I'm glad your grandchildren have got good accommodations.
Right, and you know, I understand too the situation with the union. What's the name of that union? The DOE union. What's going on? I mean, you would think, you know, these members pay their diligent, their dues and stuff like that, and then for I guess the director, is that what you were just mentioning something, his name, that he's saying that everything's fine? Am I wrong? I just turned on the radio, that's why. Something about the union for GFT. Who was that you were mentioning, that person's name?
Tim Fedenko, yeah.
Yeah. What's wrong with him?
Lack of interest.
I don't know what else to say to you, Bob. I just have to laugh. I'm just so relaxed, but laughing at the situation, it's just insane. I just wanted to say hello to you too, but you know, my disgust at what's going on with our island. I'm not happy, but what could I do? I mean, you could howl and scream, and if nothing's done, I mean, you know, when it's time to vote, then I'm pretty sure a lot of people are smart in this island. I hope so.
Glad you could join us today, Flora. I hear the music in the background, so I'm going to once again tell you you hit the nail right on the head, and thanks for joining us. Yeah, Flora made some good points. Go ahead, Jose.
Join us at Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro and see why they've been crowned Guam's best Chamorro food restaurant for 9 consecutive years. Experience Chef Peter's candied salmon over scallion coconut rice, octopus tinactac, Chamorro platter, and their award-winning gourmet burgers. Or if you're looking for something healthy, try their keto-friendly menu. Come and enjoy Mezcla's half-a-day service at their Hagåtña location from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. for lunch, 5:30 p.m. to 9 p.m. for dinner, or 10 a.m. to 2:30 p.m. for their famous Sunday brunch.
So here we go, heading up there towards the big halftime show. And I got to pick up on what Flora said. You know, sometimes laughing is the only thing you can do to keep yourself from crying. And crying is not a productive emotion. I want to point this out to everybody here on the island because, you know, most of the people on this island do not have kids in school. And I think the tendency is, well, yeah, that's too bad. I feel sorry for the kids. But, you know, for me, what difference does it make? And this is what difference it makes. If you study civil society at all, you will find out that well-functioning civil societies are based on good schools and well-educated kids. The better your school system, the better educated your kids, the stronger your civil society is going to be. It's places that have weak school systems, you know, where kids have, because they don't learn anything in school, they have a hard time getting jobs, and the whole thing snowballs really quickly, and that's exactly where we are. You know, we're planting the seeds for disasters that are going to last for years. Even if we got the schools fixed tomorrow, we've planted all those seeds with the draconian shutdown of the island by the Red Queen during the virus, and the absolute turning her back on the schools. You know, instead of being out there, boots on the ground, making sure that the schools got the resources they needed, using her bully pulpit, executive orders, her absolute control of the executive branch to devote the resources to the schools that they need. She said the legislature created the problem. Now it's theirs to fix. After she let Barnett's bill go and lapse into law without her signature.
The perfect Pontius Pilate move.
Exactly.
You know, and that's what you're saying is exactly right. There's a throwing money at the situation as a solution. We do need resources. Resources means we need funding. But you can't just do that. You have to rally the troops. You have to roll up your sleeves. You have to put your boots on. And when you have a leader that doesn't know how to do any of that, then you have a island and community that doesn't want to do any of that. We'll just rely on more money because it's not from lack of funds. We have a lot of funds here on the island. The management has been poor.
Exactly. And, what we should do is we should have the best school system in the country. Because if we did, it would be a real economic boost for us. Because companies that are located in this part of the world, if they could locate an American community with American schools, they'd be here in a heartbeat, pouring all kinds of money and good jobs into our community. But as it is, I think probably that'd be the downside for a lot of people who might think about coming to live here. So they don't want to put up with our crappy schools.
And now the crap is going to be portable.
It is. Yeah, I got to work on my Facebook here for a second, Jose.
So what happens next after they open up the schools? You know, I hope we're not looking at another, so we're open, now we can take our time in doing these fixes. I hope the legislature doesn't stop pushing the DOE to also push other people to help out and to do some work that needs to get done. And again, I'm going to say this like I always say, parents and other people in the community are not free from the responsibility as well. If you're going to take pride in your school, that means you're going to have to roll up your sleeves as well and do some work.
And if you don't want crappy leadership at the department, you can't just sit back and tisk, tisk, tisk. You know, it's ironic, after the Every Child Act was passed in 2005, I was invited to one PTA meeting to give school on that act. And that was like maybe 5 years ago.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
And not encouraging at all either.
Not encouraging even a little bit. I think the idea is we'll let somebody else do it. All right, let's take a short break and we'll come back to self-insurance.
The Point is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3.
8 on the slate. I'm Jack Callahan, Fox News. Candidates DeSantis, Ramaswamy, Pence, Haley, Christie, Scott, Hutchison, and Burgum qualifying for tonight's GOP presidential debate in Milwaukee. And as New Hampshire's Republican Governor Chris Sununu tells Fox's Your World with Neil Cavuto, hoping to stand out.
A lot of these individuals haven't had a great opportunity yet to introduce themselves to the rest of the Republican Party across the country. So I think it's just an awesome opportunity for them to show the country not just where they are in policy, but who they are as people, and make that connection.
5 candidates won't be there. Former President Trump saying he doesn't need to because he's so far ahead in the polls. 4 other candidates failing to reach the minimum polling or fundraising goals set by the Republican National Committee. RNC Chair Ronna McDaniel.
We've seen these candidates work hard. We felt that this criteria was critical to put them in a position to be viable, to win the nomination and win the presidency. We're pleased to see that. We're glad we have 8. 8 is great.
Stream live coverage of the debate on FoxNewsRadio.com starting at 7 p.m. Eastern. One-time Republican hopeful Rudy Giuliani will surrender to authorities in Atlanta today to answer charges in the Fulton County indictment that charges he and 18 others with racketeering in the aftermath of the 2020 elections. Trump legal advisor John Eastman surrendered yesterday.
Conservative attorney John Eastman vowed to fight charges in Georgia.
My legal team and I will vigorously contest every count of the indictment in which I have been named.
He, former President Trump, and 17 others are charged with launching the attempt using alternate electors to keep former President Trump in the White House despite his loss in 2020. Eastman says the facts he knows point to one conclusion.
All of my co-defendants and I will be fully vindicated.
Scott Hall, accused of breaching election equipment, also surrendered Tuesday.
Fox's Gernal Scott. America is listening to Fox News.
Are you tired of boring jobs that leave you feeling like a broken record? Well, get ready to tune into the most exciting opportunity of a lifetime. Choice Broadcasting. That Star 101, The Boss and The Point, is searching for enthusiastic salespeople and radio DJs to join our incredible team.
Salespeople, listen up. Are you tired of selling random gadgets or dull office supplies?
At Choice Broadcasting, you'll be selling airwaves. That's right, folks. We're talking about selling the magic of music.
And for you music lovers and microphone masters out there, we need DJs who can set the airwaves on fire. Have you always dreamt of being the voice that electrifies the masses? Look no further. We've got the stage where your talent can shine brighter than the sun.
So if you've got the charm, the wit, and the desire to be a part of an extraordinary team, grab your headphones and join us today. Call 888-RDIO or 888-7346 for your application.
Choice Broadcasting, where sales and radio collide and extraordinary careers are born.
The latest Fox News poll says immigration will be a major issue in the 2024 presidential election.
Our latest Fox News poll finds registered voters believe immigration and border security are the second most important issue facing the country. The issue could be a potential liability for President Biden, with more than 60% saying they disapprove of how he is handling the issue. And while the Biden administration maintains that the border is not open, according to the New York Post, U.S. officials have welded open 114 massive gates on the Arizona border, and those gates are reportedly letting in about 1,400 migrants a day. And for months now, the White House has said their reforms to immigration policy have led to a decrease in migrant encounters, but numbers released by Customs and Border Patrol Friday show encounters are actually on the rise again.
Fox's Marianne Rafferty. A court hearing Tuesday on the legality of the buoys state of Texas has deployed in the Rio Grande River.
Much of the federal court hearing in Austin centered around exactly where the buoys were. The governor has said they had the right to install them as part of a border crossing barrier in the Rio Grande near Eagle Pass. But the Justice Department said the state had no right and that Mexican officials have been angry, and they're insisting the buoys were placed on the Mexican side of the river. Governor Abbott acknowledged Monday they'd moved the barriers out of an abundance of caution. The judge questioned why state officials would move the buoys if they were confident they were on the U.S. side. He ordered each side to submit written closing arguments by Friday and said he would rule on the matter as soon as he could after that. Jessica Rosenthal, Fox News.
The White House announcing President Biden will attend next month's G20 summit meeting in New Delhi, India. The meetings and the president's talks with leaders on the sidelines of the summit will focus on climate change and Russia's war in Ukraine, among other topics. Teamsters Union says its members have voted overwhelmingly in favor of a tentative contract agreement reached last month with UPS, putting the final seal on labor negotiations that had threatened to disrupt package deliveries. I'm Jack Callahan. This is Fox News.
Check out the super typhoon-sized deals at Nissan Guam. Minimally damaged with maximum savings. These chips and dings, courtesy of Typhoon Mawar, mean that our loss is your gain. Get up to $10,000 off your favorite models, plus no money down. Inventory is going fast, so stop by the Nissan Guam showroom, take a test drive, or get pre-qualified for financing at nissanguam.com today. On approved credit, see Nissan Guam for details.
Listen to The Point anytime, anywhere on Odyssey. Odyssey is your new audio home for all the music, news, sports, and podcasts that matter to you. Find your favorite stations like The Point and discover more. Music stations, local and trusted news sources, sports talk and team coverage, plus today's biggest podcasts. Find it all on the Odyssey app. AUDACY.
We don't want you standing in long lines. It's just not right. So Bank Pacific provides excellent online and mobile banking and 24/7 access to your money with our Visa debit cards. And if you want to visit any of our 4 offices, please do so, because we're short on lines and long on service, open Fridays until 6 and on Saturday mornings. Goodbye to the frustration of waiting in long lines. Say hello to Bank Pacific. It'd be our privilege. Bank Pacific, member FDIC.
Okay, so we had another episode here of Tall Tales Rogues Gallery, winding up with a picture of me and Jeff. Flip that one back up again, will you, Jose? Yeah, that's me on the right and Jeff on the left, wearing the two neatest T-shirts on the island right now. A Jeff's Pirates Cove and a Tailgaters T-shirt. I love that place. Picture taken right here in the bar, me and the pirate. Great bar, great restaurant, great museum, nice hall for larger events, bookstore, Sergeant Yokoi, beach volleyball. If you've never been to Pirates Cove before, I don't know what to tell you, but it's the time is now, because you won't find a nicer place on the island to go out and spend a couple hours relaxing. Buy yourself a Jeff's Pirates Cove T-shirt. Take a selfie of yourself. WhatsApp it to
area code 671-797-8255. That's the Point's WhatsApp number at 671-797-8255. Send your selfie so you can be a part of the Rogues Gallery.
Yeah, you can do it with either a Tailgater shirt or a Jeff's Pirates Cove shirt. We've opened, as they would say in the mafia, we've opened up the books. You too can become a made man.
It's just another example that you're pro-choice, Bob.
Exactly. Okay, let's go on to the next item on the card here, which is more self-insured. And Harvey kind of sets the tone here. Harvey says, can't manage keeping a pool in operation or manage school maintenance. Okay, let's get into self-insurance, one of the most complex business processes. Yeah, we've got such a good track record here. How long has that swimming pool been closed? 8 years, something like that?
For a while.
And I don't remember the one in Datado ever being open.
Neither do I. In fact, yeah, you're right. It's ever. I think I've seen workers on it.
Yeah. It's when my one of my great-granddaughters was like maybe 7 or 8. She said, Grandpa, can we go to that pool in Datado where they have the slide? So I'd like to take you there, but it's not open, right? She's now 18 years old, and I still haven't seen it open. So, you know, our Parks Department and Parks and Rec can't keep the pools open, can't open them, can't keep them open. Got to has to send a plow out to the infield at the baseball stadium. We've got schools that are literally falling down around our ears. We've got a legislature where the members have decided that each one of them needs $20,000 more to run his office. We've got an ethics commission that has produced absolutely nothing in over 4.5 years, that's given itself unethical pay raises. And now we want to get into self-insurance. You know, I've had insurance, of course, as we all had, life insurance. I know a little bit about whole life insurance and about term life insurance and car insurance and all those kinds of things. And as a lawyer in private practice, I've represented insurance companies. And I can tell you this, I know enough about insurance to tell you this, Jose. It's a very complicated business. What do they make at an insurance company? Nothing. They don't make a thing. It's all numbers and figures and ratios and predictions and probabilities and things like that. It's extremely complicated, and it ain't a job for amateurs. Now, giving Byrne the maximum amount of credit, he's probably been a pretty good director of administration, which has got to be one of the hardest jobs in the government because you got so many different balls in the air, so many different missions, and so much of the government depends upon you. And that's Ed Byrne. But Ed Byrne is not an expert in insurance. If he were, he wouldn't be director of administration. He'd be knocking down the big bucks working for an insurance company somewhere. So you want to take a cast of amateurs and say, let's say we'll buy this script for Oklahoma, and then we'll go to New York and see if we could put it on Broadway. Are we going to do anything? No, but, we can read. We can read the script. We know where Broadway is, so we'll be okay. And that's about what we're trying to do here. So here's the latest article. This one ran in the Daily News. In response to multiple inquiries from employees of the government of Guam, retirees, and families, Tina Rose Monia Barnes, chairman of the Legislative Committee on Human Resources, called for an informational hearing on August 18 regarding government's proposal for fully self-insuring its health plan. The hearing also addressed Bill 154-37, proposed by Frank Blas and Chris Duenas, to extend the current GovGuam Group health plan to September 30, 2024. In other words, roll over what we've got for one more year. While I understand the need for our government to be fiscally prudent, I also understand that our community is unfortunately reliant on their health insurance plans, said Barnes in her opening statement. It's important to many of them that they maintain their care with their existing providers. I hope to not create another health crisis in our community from being underinsured. Despite the plan being promoted on lower premiums, a decrease would only be seen by those already with Select Care. And I talked about this already. I stayed with Select Care this time around, even though for retiree supplement, if you went with Take Care, there was no premium, no deduction from your check at all. For Select Care, it was about $30 a pay period, which is big bucks for two people. But I was so satisfied with Select Care, I didn't want to take a chance on going somewhere else. But the premium for Take Care was zero. Picking up the article, despite the plan being promoted on lower premiums, a decrease would only be seen by those already with Select Care. Those who are currently with Take Care would see a slight increase within 3 to 5%, according to Ed Byrne, Director of Administration. He's not the director of the department. I got to quit saying that. Yeah, so if the premium now is zero, and I think we get to that later on here, it goes to $54. That's more than just a slight increase. Byrne, who represented the Department of Administration, noted this has been a plan that has been thought out and can be attributed to the strength of GovGuam's current finances. We tried to come up with a plan which is economical and provides the best benefits to employees and retirees. Byrne said, we won't alter the schedule of benefits or the actual plans offered. Well, one sentence you say, come up with a plan that provides the best benefits, and then you say you're going to keep the same plan, which means we got the best benefits right now. Byrne clarified the plan will extend all Gov employees and retirees, including those under autonomous agencies, with the exception of the active employees at the judiciary. As the plan is still being developed and final rates have not been publicized yet under this plan, Dr. Thomas Shea, I wonder if he only has one horse. What do you think, Jose?
I don't know. I'm afraid to answer.
Yeah, I guess it wouldn't be correct to say that his office is just a one-horse Shea. It's a one Shea office, right? All right. Thomas Shea has previously announced he will not accept the plan with GovGuam, noted in his approval of Bill 154 that there's no harm on putting a pause on self-insurance. Take this coming year to give yourself more time to build up funds and bring providers to a possible roundtable, noted Shea. A health insurance plan is no good without somebody to provide care. If you go to Calvo's, you won't have access to FHP clinics. Dr. Hua Nguyen, a co-founder of American Medical Center, also stated to the committee that there have still been more questions than answers regarding the plan, so his clinics have not yet formally decided whether to accept or not accept the self-insurance plan. The mistrust is with GovGuam. I learned from GovGuam one thing. If you don't have it in black and white, you can't take anyone's word for it, said Nguyen. The federal government will not step in and rescue Guam on the health care. You're going to need a lot more planning because with every question tonight, you don't have a firm answer. Nguyen further echoed Shea's sentiment to delay in self-insurance because there's still a lot of work to do with both the government and the clinics. Blas has since issued a letter on Tuesday to Speaker Therese Tetlahi as a request for an emergency session for the legislature. Good for Blas. To decide on Bill 154. Blas noted the bill will provide ample time needed to build a reserve fund to ensure that money is available to pay claims, ensure that contractual agreements are in place, and obtain stop-loss insurance that may be needed to cover claims above collected accounts. The bill is also intended to give reasonable time for the government to provide information on the plan to the employees and retirees due to possible confusion and uncertainty about the future of their health care, according to Blas. On August 18, the Office of the Government of Guam also provided answers to possible questions regarding the self-insured health plan. The governor's office clarified that it will now be the government to assume financial risk providing health care benefits to his employees by paying for each out-of-pocket claim as it's incurred instead of paying a fixed premium to an insurance carrier, which means that the government does the cash management, not the insurer. And we've seen how horribly the government is at cash management. Ask Chris Duenas and the floating $20 million. I also clarified that current Take Care members will not need complete enrollment forms since they are not being offered due to automatic enrollment in Select Care for medical and net care for dental under the same plan and class. Those under Take Care should visit Calvo's provider directory to ensure they can still get care, which can be found here. Questions and answers can be found at the governor's website. So this article makes it clear then that if you've been with Take Care, you aren't going to be able to go with Take Care because there's no contract between Take Care and Select Care. So Take Care is not one of the providers for Select Care. Now that by itself is grounds for, a whole lot of head scratching and sharp pencils. And I don't carry any brief for Take Care. I was with Take Care FHB for a long, long time before they decided they weren't going to sell insurance to the government of Guam. And then I was forced to go to Select Care, and it's one of the best things that ever happened to me. Take Care and FHB started out as a health insurance organization, if you can remember that was. A health insurance organization was not a single provider who would refer to as specialists. It was a group of providers, specialties, allied health professionals, etc. So when FHP first opened, they had doctors, they had optometry, they had their own pharmacy, physical therapy, on and on, all in a one-stop shop kind of approach.
Similar to like an HMO
Yeah, Health Maintenance Organization. That's what
maintenance.
HMO stands for.
Oh, I always heard manage, but yeah, I don't know. Different word. Thought it was a different letter.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's like Kaiser Permanente in the States.
Yeah. And that's the way they started. Now, this was started by a guy named let's see, what was his name? Gumbiner. In the beginning, we had Catholic Medical Center on that corner. The Catholic Medical Center had been down in Aniguic, and it was one of the better clinics on the island back in the day. But Catholic Medical Center built that, leased that land from the government of Guam, built Catholic Medical Center there. Gumbiner came out and entered into a deal with Catholic Medical Center. So for a while, it was FHP Catholic Medical Center. And Gumbiner went on the rubber chicken circuit to sell this concept of the HMO. And I can't remember, I think it was at a chamber meeting or a Rotary meeting, and I was my wise-ass self out in the audience. And Gumbiner said, I'm going to explain this to you, and it's a little bit complicated, but I will entertain questions, although, I'm not looking forward to it, because it's kind of like the guy who brought an automobile agency into town. And, of course, everybody was used to the horse and buggy. So he had to explain the difference between an automobile and a horse and buggy, the advantages of each, and he spent about 20 minutes explaining that. And when it was all finished, he asked the crowd of farmers a question, any questions out there? And the automobile salesman said, yeah, you got a question. What's your question? And the farmer said, where do you put the horse? So Gumbiner went through his whole rigmarole, et cetera, laid it all out for us. And then said, okay, any questions out there? I raised my hand. Guess what my question was?
Where do you put the horse?
Exactly. Exactly. So then they had to separate, and then they got into a skirt tearing contest because the archdiocese, which was the landlord for it, still is the landlord, didn't want any pro-abortion stuff or any pro-birth control stuff going on in their clinic. So I don't know how that finally was resolved. But of course, if you have a healthcare maintenance organization or healthcare management organization, you've got to confine your patients to that group. You can't have them going to Dr. Quack for some of their stuff and your HMO for the other. But that's going to be a real problem for people whose primary care is at take care. And that itself, I think, requires a certain amount of discussion. Doctors are not fungible. In other words, you can't say, give the doctors a number, and I'll just draw a number out of the head, because a doctor is a doctor. Not so at all. The interrelationship between the doctor and the patient, I think even more so than the interrelationship between the doctor and the lawyer or the customer and the barber, is I hate to change barbers, Jose. It's extremely personal. You could be the best barber in the world, the best lawyer in the world, the best doctor in the world, but if you don't connect,
that's it.
It's just not going to work. And of course, when people latch onto a doctor they really like, they don't want to let him go. Or nowadays, they don't want to let her go. So I'm 100% in agreement with the rollover. This thing just needs a whole lot more study and a lot more answers. If you're going to talk about health insurance, I want to know how much it's going to cost. I don't want round figures. I don't want estimates. I want to know exactly how much it's going to cost. So if you can't do that, good luck, Republicans, in your bill. Let's hope that the coalition backs this. And I got a feeling that the speaker's with it 100% and malfunctions with it. So we don't know about Sabina. We don't know where Sabina is going to be on this. I think we have to make sure that Sabina understands that it's good for the environment, and then she'll sign up for it.
There will be no shooting ranges.
Yeah, there'll be no BB gun ranges in any of these clinics, and then Sabina might go along with it. All right, let's head for Wrigley Field, Jose.
People are saying that the future looks uncertain.
Jobs, education, even our health.
Everything seems harder now.
They wonder if we're up to the challenges we're all facing.
We don't. We share in the proud history of our island and people.
We share the drive to serve and make life better for all of us.
We all share the will to overcome and succeed.
With part-time service in the Guam Army National Guard, you can share that too.
Join Guam's next greatest generation.
Contact us at 671-969-5967 or visit nationalguard.com/Guam to find out more.
Sponsored by the Guam Army National Guard and this station.
Okay, next item on the card is Doug versus the CCU. Doug seems to have a habitual opponent there, the CCU, and we'll get into that. But first I want to talk about Christmas trees and Christmas tree lights. It's not this way anymore, but back in the day when I was a kid, Christmas tree lights, I think I got it right, were hooked up in parallel, not series. So you put bulbs in every one of the sockets and you plugged it in and the lights would come on. If one of those bulbs burnt out, the whole string would die. And you would have to somehow try to figure out which bulb was the one that didn't work, because none of them worked. And you figure that out and you replace that bulb, and as if by magic the lights had come back on. Well, I think the lights are hooked in series now, so one bulb burns out, the rest of the string goes on. So you need to understand that analogy to understand the latest battle between Doug and the CCU. And the title of the article that ran in the Post, Christmas Tree Power Grid Must End. Senators should properly begin oversight hearings to eliminate the Consolidated Commission on Utilities and the ineffective part-time CCU members responsible for this recurring and injurious load shedding. I wonder why Doug just doesn't come out and tell us what he really thinks. And of course, the load shedding is injurious. And I'll tell you, I'm getting tired of setting my clocks every single day of the week, Jose.
You don't like the blink?
No. And fortunately, I got a couple of electric clocks that are battery protected, which ought to be mandatory. We ought to have a law that says you cannot sell an electric clock that's not battery protected.
I'll call the Youth Congress.
Yeah. So Doug says these part-time board members, and of course, Doug knows he's not going to get any sympathy from me on this, because I have praised the CCU lavishly for the work that they've done. comparing the Power Authority and the Water Authority before the CCU came online in 2003 as to what it was like before. Load shedding was the norm for years and years and years and years. And, you know, there was a difference between sewage and tap water, but, you know, sometimes it was kind of hard to tell. The feds almost took the water away from us. They almost put us in receivership because of our Hanum Taki. It was really bad. And since the CCU, we've seen just dramatic improvements in the way the Power Authority operates. I went to their little Chautauqua up at the Hyatt the other day, and I knew they were doing a good job, but I was just amazed at how technically proficient they are. You know, the way they're wired up now, they can tell you which streetlights don't work. They don't have to send somebody out in a pickup at night to figure out which lights don't work. They're constantly improving the system, hardening the system as much as they can. We've got like 35% renewable energy. Their plans were, you know, I went to a chamber meeting where John B. laid out the plan for the next 40 years. Very impressive. And of course, they get no help from the likes of Clint Rigel, who took his bag full of monkey wrenches and left the legislature after throwing monkey wrench after monkey wrench into the CCU's plans. So I've always given the CCU very high marks on power and water. Freedom of Information Act, open government law, not so much. They made some pretty gigantic screw-ups there, and it looks like maybe they fixed those things. But anyhow, I'm not going to be really objective here on this, because I think, believe it or not, Jose, I think I'm right and Doug is wrong. Boggles the mind, doesn't it? Mm-hmm. And I've advanced the CCU as a model of how well a part-time quasi-legislature could work, which is what the CCU is, and advanced that same model for our legislature. If you have a relatively small number of relatively smart, committed, honest, decent, conscientious people, you're going to get a whole lot better governance than you are out of 21 clowns that somehow make it into the legislature. I'm not going to mention names, but you know who I'm talking about.
We all do.
Yeah. So I see the CCU as a model for good government. Doug wants to beat up on them because they're part-time. And he wants to go back to the old days when the governor ran the utilities, when the governor and Don Parkinson ran the utilities. And Parkinson was notorious because the main plank in his platform was no power increases, your water bill is going to stay the same. You can't run a business that way. You have to be able to, you have to make capital expenditures, especially on a water system like ours, which was built by the Navy, you know, and basically almost wartime conditions, where the idea was to get it in there fast, not necessarily right. So our water supply system is the best friend the aquifer ever had. More water flows into the aquifer from GWA's pipes than from the rain clouds. But they continue to work on it, make it better, etc. So going on to the second paragraph of this article, longtime board members are the same ones responsible for this weekend's and many weekends' Christmas tree power outages. Now you know why I had to talk about Christmas trees. There's no immediate end in sight to years of upcoming load shedding and increasing power bills due to an inept CCU. Now, I got to stop here and add a parenthetical part here, and that is that Doug, whether he likes it or not, has been at war with the CCU since he took over. Because the CCU, the two utilities, power and water, have had their own council, as have many other autonomous agencies like GITA, Airport, etc. And I can see that it makes a lot of sense, because when it comes into regulated industries, the average lawyer is going to have to do an awful lot of learning to get caught up. So you're looking for continuity, you're looking for adequate representation, a certain degree of specialization, etc. The Attorney General's approach tended to be fungible. Well, you need a lawyer over there at CCU, I will send you so-and-so from the Child Support Division or something like that, So I could see why the CCU was chagrined at not having and not being able to get both of their lawyers certified as SAC, Special Assistant Attorneys General, which for some of them, which for those two was a statutory requirement for them to appear in court to represent power or water. And of course, water had a huge civil suit with Badger meters. And when it came to the district court, the district court judge, Francis Gatewood, said, I don't care about that. We're not changing counsel this close to trial. But Doug has been steadfast. He's not going to let these guys have SAC. He said, if you got your lawyers, send them over to my office. You pay for them. And if you need them, I'll let you use them. This has really angered the folks at the two utilities and the CCU, who have a good argument. I don't think it's the best argument. I think the best argument is that we need to sit down and sort this whole thing out. The relationship between agency attorneys and the Attorney General of Guam, because it was never the subject of a plan. We started out with an Attorney General who was all legal services for everybody, and we kind of did it ad hoc. Each attorney has a little different relationship with the Attorney General, and this would be a great time to sort it out. But Doug doesn't want to do that. He wants to fight with the two utilities. Getting close to Churchill Downs, so I think what I'm going to do is go to Churchill Downs. Let me check and see who's in the green room right now, Jose.
That would be Frenchie.
I wonder I hope Frenchie wants to talk about this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay. So we'll go to the green room, and I'll give Frenchie a little time, and then I'm going to come back to this article, because there's an awful lot to talk about in this article. But the nice thing about Frenchie, when we put Frenchie on the air, he never offends silence.
Half a day. This is Claire Manglona from Security Title with an important warning. Wire fraud is real, and home buyers and sellers are one of the biggest targets, even on Guam. When sending money by wire transfer, be sure to confirm the wire instructions by phone, not email. In this case, it's good to be suspicious and know who you're dealing with. Let the professionals at Security Title work with you to minimize loss due to wire fraud. We are here to help.
So here we are, Churchill Downs in Louisville, 6 furlongs. I crossed the finish line and right off into the sunset, but we still got 2 more whole days this week, so I'm happy. Okay, I'm happy, and I'm always happy when I got Frenchie on the line. Frenchie knows so much. He lays it out in a very articulate manner. And, you know, being that he's from France, I could listen to Frenchie read the ingredients on a can of noodle soup and find it very interesting. Go for it, Frenchie.
Well, I usually make my soup without a can, but anyhow, yeah, I was waiting for you to bring that CCU snafu from Doug. I understand why Doug is trying to get some popularity context here, but the problem is that he didn't do his homework and he's attacking the wrong people. There is an issue, and the main reason we have that issue is that Okodu is not online. And the main reason Okodu is not online is because Clint Richdale and the eco-fascists have basically delayed, like you say, throw every monkey wrench they could find in the process, to the point that now we are 2 years behind on the opening of the Okodu plant, which was greatly necessary to replace the antiquated power plants that we have at Cabras, in Dededo, and in Gigo. And had it not been for Clint Richdale, Lou Leon Guerrero, and all the eco-fascists, including Senator Perez, the thing would be online and we wouldn't be in the conundrum that we are in right now. And so Doug was, he was right. I mean, people are pissed off about the situation, but he went after the wrong guy. So it's an unforced error on his part, which is really sad because he had an opportunity to say, but he should stay in his lane on this and look at some of the things that are going on with financing and not go after the CCU. The CCU is one of the few agencies that actually works on Guam, that actually is doing something, and like you say, is only part-time. So
you know, Frenchie, I went by the Royal Lanes or the bowling alley the other day, and there's a big sign on the front door that said Doug Moylan, keep out. I'm afraid they don't want bowling balls rolling all over that place. But go ahead, Frenchie.
Well, and I understand, and so good intention. Not enough work put into looking at what the issues already were, and then now a situation where the populist movement on the island wants to get all the bums out, and then of course they want to throw the wrong bums. The right bums are in Adelup and in the Senate. So, you know, and it's the same thing. I think you're going to talk about it too with the cesspool and the Guam EPA. You know, instead of trying to reinvent the wheel, they should enforce the existing law and go after all those chop chops that have appeared in the jungle over the last few months and that are leaking oil, gas, mercury, and all kind of dangerous ingredients in the water. And it's all those things are on Chamorro Land Trust land, and then they put them out on the street and set them on fire, which creates even more pollution with whatever rubber that was left on the car sips in the water. So we have people that are trying to gaslight people, which, you know, this is what a lot of politicians do, but gaslight for the right reason, and they don't. And so it's really infuriating to see that. And again, if it was not for the eco-fascists, we would already have Okodu online and we wouldn't have to shed power. And but then they are not going to take responsibility for the destruction they have caused. And then of course now with the typhoon will be even 6 months later because the fuel tanks have collapsed, so they're going to have to wait to be replaced. So we'll see. And thank you for bringing those issues forward because very few people are talking about it. I told Candid News that they use this also on Candid to drum support, but I think you're having the wrong diagnosis on this. This is not CCU that is at cause here. It's actually the senators and the people at Adelup that wanted to push for no CO2 energy generations, and which is a pie in the sky. And instead we got a typhoon, and then now we're all going to suffer for the next 2.5 years because this is how long it's going to take to fix the issue.
All good points, Frenchie. Thank you very much for jumping in here and helping me out on this one. I appreciate it. Yeah, well, Frenchie's really on top of stuff here, and he's right on top of this. Had it not been for, Clint Rigel, I don't know why we're building that plant out in Okado when we should be going to solar energy. And the power guys explained many times that the Okado plant is more modern, and it burns about half as much oil as what we're burning now to generate the same amount of electricity. And it burns cleaner oil, so we can get out from under a consent decree with the national EPA. A very good move. The CCU is moving in the direction of renewable energy, which will never stand on its own because I don't know if Doug ever noticed this, but, around 7 o'clock p.m. it starts getting dark. And you can't generate solar power unless you got sun. I got a feeling we're not generating much today either in these cloudy days.
And not only that, because of the typhoon, and this is a story I have yet to see any journalist pick up, and I hope Canada sees this also. If anyone drove by some of the dumps, they noticed there were separate piles for solar panels.
Yeah.
And where are those solar panels going? Because you can't put them in a landfill.
No.
And we can't just ship them off and dump them in the ocean.
Nope. They
are a toxic environmental hazard. And everyone keeps lauding all about solar panels, but this typhoon ripped off a lot of them. JFK, you saw a big, huge pile in front of the school because they all came off the school.
And the irony there is, remember, GPA said, no, we don't want you to do that. And the governor insisted, we're going to do this because we're right and you're wrong.
Remember all those solar lights that everyone was gathering and buying and purchasing and putting them on their houses?
Yeah.
I bet you about 90%, probably even more, all got blown off because my mom's did.
Yeah.
And those solar panels got all twisted up, and they're in a dump also, waiting in limbo to where they're going to go next.
So with the Okado plant, it would have been much more efficient. We would have been able to take those antiques offline and not be relying on them anymore. We probably would have never seen load shedding again had that plant come online this year.
And the precursor to that was a plan to build a backup plant in Keedy that just never happened because it was blocked at every outlet, every avenue.
Clint Rigel again. Okay, I see somebody else trying to get in the green room here. Let's see. It looks like Senator Chris Duenas, who probably wants to talk about the same issue. Howdy, Chris.
How's the day, Honorable Marine, Your Honor, Honorable Senator, my favorite talk show host. I'm not going to be popular for those who are pissed off, but you're right and Frenchie's right. And I just wanted to give you an example. When I came in 2021, one of the first Zoom meetings, because that's how we were doing business during that time, was Federecki and others pushing for a bill introduced by Senator Joe to make sure that they could do the 40 megawatts down in Cabras. And even that drugged so far along that we lost that opportunity. And that's a stabilizer for the South on this renewable energy in terms of the intermittency of the issue and also a 40 meg backup. But because of Clint Rigel single-handedly caused that delay, it just because it became expensive.
Hey, Chris.
I had to scrap it because
Chris.
the cost balloon.
Hey, Chris.
Basically
Chris.
double fold.
Chris.
And we just acted.
Oi.
And I actually went to Joe and I said, hey.
Earth to Chris. Chris Duenas. Hey, Chris.
Because I'm tired of this. We've heard this thing already. It's months and months and months, and we're at the 11th hour. They're trying to finalize this deal. And so it got pulled out. There was a lot of, gnashing of teeth on the floor, but it passed. But it was too late even at that. And that's exactly where we are. And Frenchie's right. We got to train our energy. And like I said, I'm not going to be popular with those who are angry. But the truth is we got to train our energy. We're supposed to be. I personally went and met with the CCU when I first came in 2021. And basically, I said John B. and I said to all of them, there was a couple of CCU members there. I said, you guys, this is very complicated stuff, but I'm going to hold you to the presentation, and that's why you've been privy of that too. When we get to the finalization of that plant, we should really, really have turned the tables, and power should come down exponentially. But the delay on that is exactly what Frenchie discussed. It was all this bastardizing of the organization, kind of turning everything upside down on its head. And we are years behind on this issue now. Those plants down in Cabras, Your Honor, I mean, literally, you go down there, I mean, that place, they've got Band-Aids all over the place to try to keep that place running.
They have an agreement, Chris.
We've known that for years,
Hey, Chris.
over a decade now.
Earth to Chris. Hello, Chris.
One or two bursting. It's just not a system that is presentable anymore to a power grid for baseload generation. And so once again, with the integration of what we have right now, and the only thing sustaining us in the system right now is massive what's coming out.
Chris, I need to be able to get a word in edgewise here from time to time. A little while ago, you were breaking up. I suspect it was Clint Rigel jamming your phone. I wanted to tell you to see if you could move to a little bit clearer place.
Hello, sir?
Yeah, Chris, you need to listen for a minute here.
I think he's calling back on another line.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
Okay. Good. I wonder if his headset is broken.
But see what Senator Duenas is repeating is the factual circumstances that nobody wants to admit. We all want to have this woke policy of environmental energy, something that's renewable. It all sounds good on paper, and it's not saying that you can't put a solar panel or have an array on your homes. Private enterprise, companies, that's fine. But for a public utility to try to run it as an alternative to its fuel generators right now, especially on Guam where there is no real estate to put huge farms of solar panels on, it's just not feasible. And I think we really have to stop looking at some of the rhetoric that we just repeat over and over and really look into what's happening.
Exactly. So, Chris, if you're listening, and I hope you are, it was brought to my attention that when your phone is breaking up, which it was, you probably weren't able to hear me, because that's what I wanted to tell you, that your phone was breaking up. Looks like we're probably not going to have time to get you back on today, but I hope you call in tomorrow, and I hope we got a better connection. Maybe you might want to use a landline or position your cell phone in a different place than you did when you called in today, because what you said was really important. Okay, so we got just a few more minutes to go. You know, Jose, I understand that the CCU has cut a MOU with the Smithsonian Institute.
Oh, I'm interested.
Yeah, that when they take Cabris 1, Cabris 2, when they take those generators out of there, they're going to ship them to the Smithsonian Institute to show museum goers what old-fashioned power equipment really looked like.
Yep.
Yeah, so the Cabris would have been more efficient, would have been cheaper, less pollution if you're an environmental wacko, just a much better solution. And something else that people need to take into consideration, if you're going to use solar power, you have to have generators to pick up when there's no solar power, which is sometimes intermittent. And you can't just plug any old generator into the line. So these new generators at Okadu would have fit very, very well. And if we had them now, we would have forgotten what the word load shedding meant. So, Chris, I hope you can call again tomorrow. Jeff, once again, thank you for sponsoring Systemic Racism. Pirates Cove forever. Let's go, Brandon.
The Point is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3. D3.
Stage is set. I'm Jack Callahan, Fox News, for the first GOP presidential candidates debate tonight in Milwaukee.
8 candidates met polling and donor requirements to qualify for the debate stage here at Viserve Forum, including political newcomer Vivek Ramaswamy.
I'm new to politics as an outsider. Yeah. And so a lot of I think my rise has threatened a lot of other people. That's no secret.
Ramaswamy is facing new scrutiny for comments about 9/11 and other foreign policy positions. Governor Ron DeSantis will have the podium center stage as the highest polling candidate participating after former President Trump declined to take part in the debates.
Fox's Jared Halpern. Fox News Radio will provide special coverage of the first Republican primary debate beginning at 7 p.m. Eastern Time tonight. Listen at foxnewsradio.com. Special counsel says in a court filing, an employee at Mar-a-Lago has retracted prior false testimony to a grand jury and has implicated former President Trump and 2 other people in an attempt to erase surveillance camera footage. Mr. Trump has pleaded not guilty in the documents case, says he's done nothing wrong. Trump legal advisor John Eastman has surrendered in Atlanta to answer charges in a state indictment. Charges him and 18 others, including Mr. Trump, with racketeering. After bonding out, Eastman called the indictment bogus.
It targets attorneys for their zealous advocacy on behalf of their clients, something attorneys are ethically bound to provide, and which was attempted here by formally challenging the results of the election through lawful and appropriate means.
Rudy Giuliani is expected to turn himself in today. Former President Trump tomorrow. Authorities in Hawaii pleading with relatives of the hundreds of people still unaccounted for in the Maui wildfires to provide DNA samples to help identify the victims. 115 people are known dead. Tragedy in India. A bridge under construction has collapsed, sending 17 workers plummeting to their deaths. America is listening to Fox News.
New from the Fox News Podcast Network.
I'm Emily Campagno, and this is the Fox True Crime Podcast.
And I had nothing to do with her disappearance.
I sit down with the people who lived the nightmares.
I was in shock. I was just devastated.
The investigators who tirelessly worked on the case.
And I really hope that they can catch this guy.
Bringing you closer to the story than you ever thought possible.
Listen and follow now at foxnewspodcasts.com or wherever you get your podcasts.
These are the stories that keep you up at night.
From the Fox News Podcasts Network. Listen to the all-new Bret Baier podcast featuring Common Ground, talking to lawmakers weekly from opposite sides of the political spectrum about the issues of the day and how Americans can find common ground in a politicized world.
That's just not happening on Capitol Hill. It takes leadership, right?
Yeah, it absolutely does.
Along with all your Bret Baier favorites like the campaign, the candidates, the all-star panel, and much more. Available now at foxnewspodcasts.com or wherever you get your podcasts.
Congressional investigators are demanding more information about the Justice Department's investigation of Hunter Biden's foreign business dealings and whether they acted on whistleblower complaints.
Those same lawmakers issuing new demands for both testimony and accountability. This summer, 2 IRS agents testified before Congress that they had concerns about how the investigation run by the U.S. Attorney in Delaware was being handled, and they believed limits were placed on who could be charged and investigated. The chairman of House Oversight, the Judiciary, and Ways and Means Committee all demanding the Justice Department's Inspector General give an update on what he's learned. These lawmakers say their testimony raised serious questions about the federal government's commitment to even-handed justice. The Justice Department's Inspector General acknowledged that they received the information from the whistleblowers, but have not indicated whether their office is meaningfully investigating the disclosures.
Fox's Mark Meredith, the man accused of the huge cryptocurrency collapse, back in court yesterday.
Sam Bankman-Fried's New York City court appearance on Tuesday included a not guilty plea to a superseding indictment accusing him of fraud and conspiracy and a complaint from his lawyer about his treatment behind bars. They say he's been denied access to prescription medication and want him released 5 days a week to prepare for his upcoming October trial. Prosecutors say he stole billions of dollars in FTX customer funds and that he used it to buy lavish real estate properties and spend millions on donations to U.S. political campaigns to promote crypto-friendly legislation. Bankman-Fried has acknowledged risk management failures at FTX but denied stealing funds. In New York City, Tanya J. Powers, Fox News.
Opening arguments are scheduled today in the trial of 3 men accused of plotting to kidnap Michigan's Governor Gretchen Whitmer back in 2020. Eric Molitor and brothers William and Michael Null are charged with providing material support for terrorist acts. They have pled not guilty. I'm Jack Callahan. This is Fox News.
This is House Call for Health. Kids are already back to school in parts of the country or heading back in others, and psychologists have advice on how parents can help young students deal with any jitters. Dr. Emily Mudd with the Cleveland Children's Clinic says back-to-school anxiety is normal. She says if your child is having nightmares lately, it could be a sign of jitters about the new school year. To help them cope, Dr. Mudd says parents should validate their children's feelings because dismissing their feelings can only make things worse. Dr. Mudd also recommends easing children back into their typical routine of waking up and going to bed at a certain time. She says parents can also consider taking their kids to school prior to the start to help them get used to the new environment. But if anxiety continues, it might be time to seek some professional help. For more health news, go to foxnewshealth.com. House Call for Health. I'm Lisa Brady, Fox News.